The first thing we do is we put the flour into the food processor. That's 2½ cups of white all-purpose flour, 1 cup of confectioner's sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to pulse that just until it's combined. Just a few seconds. And that's done. That's 2 sticks of butter cut into small chunks. Just scatter the butter pieces on top. We have to be very careful not to over-process the dough. Otherwise we'll get a tough crust. So we're going to pulse it until it resembles a coarse yellow meal. And that looks just about right. What you want to make sure of is that the fat is completely cut into the flour. You don't have any powdery bits remaining. We have a perfect meal over here. This is perfect. The next step is to whisk together a 1/3 cup of heavy cream, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 large egg yolks. You're going to whisk that together just until it's well combined. Just pour it on top. And fold it together just until it starts to clump. Then I'll take a few turns with a spatula. So what you want to do next is we're going to divide the dough in half and wrap it in plastic wrap. Wrap it loosely to give yourself room to form it into a disc. Nice. I like to do this once it's in the wrap. Most people do it before, but I just find it easier to form the dough once it's wrapped in plastic. Either way works. You can make it into a disc before you wrap it in plastic wrap. I'll do that for the second one so you can see how that's done. Form it into a disc. And just wrap it back up. Tart dough is sticky. As you can see, it's sticking to my fingers. That's what water's for. Now, the dough needs to rest in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours, or even up to 3 days. And that's perfect because then you can prepare the dough in advance and throw it together the day that you want to bake it. You can actually throw the tart together the day that you want to bake it. While the dough is resting in the refrigerator, you can start to prepare the filling. Now, I'll bet many of you are wondering what treacle is. That is the shining star in this most favorite of Harry Potter's desserts. This is treacle, also called golden syrup. Treacle is created during the sugar refining process as a byproduct, and there are 2 kinds. There's black treacle. It has a bitter, intense, smoky flavor. A very little bit goes a very long way with black treacle, but it is too overpowering to use in treacle tart. Golden syrup has a light amber color and is absolutely perfect in this dessert. It's very hard to measure because it's very thick and gloppy. So first, before we actually measure it out, it's a good idea to warm it in the microwave for about 30 seconds. Just to thin out the consistency, make it a little more runny so it pours more easily. So I'm going to measure out 1 cup of treacle syrup, the golden syrup. Okay, we're going to add soft breadcrumbs. To get 2 1/4 cups of soft breadcrumbs, you're going to want to use 6 to 8 slices of bread. and you just shred the bread first with your fingers and then process it in a food processor until it turns into fine crumbs. And then add lemon juice and lemon zest. It's a very simple tart. Simple but delicious. Okay, mix it till it's combined and set it aside until you're ready to use it. The next step is rolling out the dough. So the first thing to do before you roll out the dough is actually to preheat the oven. It needs to heat up to at 400, and that could take a good 15 minutes to a half hour. So now's the time to do it. And then you can take your dough out of the refrigerator. This dough is too hard to roll out, and that is very likely to happen. So what you're going to do is just let it rest on the counter for 10 minutes till it softens. The dough is ready now. It's soft enough to roll out. Now, tart dough is very sticky, so use lots of flour to dust your work surface. Be very generous with the flour. Afterwards, we can brush off the excess flour. But if your dough sticks to the surface, it's going to tear when you try to move it. Sprinkle more flour on top. Okay, now we can start rolling it out. I like to use a French rolling pin. It's long, got the tapered edges, but any rolling pin will work. Start from the center and roll it to the edges, working your way around the dough. Just from the center towards the edges, and around we go. When the dough gets a little bit bigger, it's a good idea to flip it over to make sure it's not sticking. And it's not. Great. Ideally, you should roll the dough to an 11-inch circle. I like to be on the safe side and roll it to 12 or 14 inches, so I'm going to see what it is right now. It is 11 inches. I'm going to roll it a little bit bigger to make sure that when I fit it into the pan, it fits in perfectly. I'd rather have a bigger overlap than too small. Okay, I'm going to brush off the excess flour from the top of the dough. And then this is the part that could be very difficult. And that's the part where you're transferring the dough. Tart dough, like I said, is very sticky. This end is a little thick. I'm going to just flatten that out a little. And it has a tendency to rip and tear when you move it. But if that happens, don't panic. You can easily patch it together. You can squeeze it together with your fingertips. And if it's not sticking together, add a little water to use as a sort of glue to glue it together. I'm going to fold this in quarters and brush off the flour off each quarter. And then I'm going to transfer it to the tart pan. And then unfold it into the tart pan. Ease the dough in gently, don't stretch it. Press it against the sides. See here, it cracked a little. I'm just patching it together with my fingers. Okay, before you fill it, it's a good idea to start preparing the lattice topping. So we're going to repeat the process again. Flour the surface really well. And here you don't have to worry about getting a perfect circle because you're going to be cutting this into strips for the lattice. So start from the center, rolling out. Okay, you can use any sharp knife. If you have a pastry roller, that's great, but you don't absolutely need to have one. Now you fill the dough, fill the tart, just give it a little stir. Make sure it's well mixed. Just lay the strips across the tart. And then lay more strips in the opposite direction for the lattice pattern. You just need to pinch the edges off with your fingers. Go all the way around, pinching the edges off. Okay, the last step before popping the tart in the oven is to brush a beaten egg over the crust, the top crust. This is one egg beaten with a little bit of water. And it brushes away all that extra flour too. And look at that, isn't that beautiful? And now, you can stick it in the oven. Bake this for 10 minutes at 400. And then lower the temperature to 375 in 10 minutes. Okay, it is time to take the tart out of the oven. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that gorgeous? I'm going to set it down right here to cool. Treacle pie is delicious on its own, but you can also serve it with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, or you can serve it the British way with custard. For an elegant presentation, pour a little custard into the center of your bowl or plate, and cut a slice. Set it down right in the center of the custard. Add a few berries on the side. Dust it with confectioner's sugar. Isn't that beautiful? And enjoy it with a nice hot cuppa.